a Q&A relating to the Phoenix Protocol and also just in general. So if you have any questions, you can send them in and we'll answer. And we have Julia here, who, as you all know, I'm sure many of you know her from the Facebook group because she probably answers all your questions and moderates the group. So yeah, welcome, Julia. It's good to have you.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I wish I could answer all the questions really in the Facebook group. They're interesting, but once in a while, the ones that I can't answer, I do. But
Mm.
hey, everyone, when you see the Julia name, that's me.
Yeah, it's nice that people can actually see you for a change. Um, yeah, great. So we're going to start with the Phoenix questions about the Phoenix Protocol because we're starting a new cohort this Monday, the 8th of May.
Mhm.
So if anyone wants to join up, you can join before that date, and then our first call will be this Friday. The following Friday, so the 12th.
Okay, so I know that we have here a few questions that were, a lot of people ask the same questions, and I think they're useful. So I'm going to start with the Phoenix Protocol, like you said. And the first one has to do with access. What are all the ways that I can access the Phoenix Protocol?
Yeah, so we've actually just launched a new way that you can access the course. So, but first of all, I'll talk about the other two ways. So, first of all, you can access it through the subscription model, which is basically a learn solo. You're just going through the course content on your own, and you subscribe for as many months as it takes to kind of go through the program. The second option is to do the group coaching, which is what we start next week. And this is, again, the same content, the 2-month content, but the difference is that I will be leading the weekly calls every Friday and answering questions in regards to the content in the course. And we're about to launch a new way to access the information, which is actually via a support group. So someone ideally who's graduated from the course will continue to facilitate the weekly calls, but instead of them being facilitated by me or a doctor or a coach, it's going to be by a participant of the course, and they're just going to facilitate and hold space and organize the calls, the logistics of it. And yeah, we want to see how that goes and how, we want to give people as many people access as possible to this content.
Yeah, I
So
remember. Yes, I remember Dr. Hader was very, very excited because I think he wanted more people to have access and get the word out, and even if people can't afford it. So tell me more about this support group. Is it okay? Number one, does it cost anything to join that group?
no,
And
so
how
that,
does it work?
yeah, so that's actually going to be free. The support group is going to be free. So this is a way that if you sign up as a group, if you get your own group together and
Mhm.
you sign up as the team leader of the group, then you can go through the content with your team for free for the 2 months and facilitate the calls and yeah, and of course there's options to add on services. So if you want to have a call with me, have a call with the medical team, ask more questions, then that cost can be split amongst the group, and it's sort of an extra service. But the actual just to go through the course and access the material is going to be free. So it's just really about getting this information out to
Getting
people.
the right, and the team lead, so the person that will coordinate the group, they will get support from you, I guess, directly. Am I correct?
Yes, so the team lead will be given a guide as to, the
Mhm.
practical things of facilitating, like how to do the links to the calls and, what kind of things to focus on when there's just some practical and logistical things in regards to hosting a
Right.
group.
Mhm.
So we're
Right.
going to give some guidance on that, and then they'll always have access to me to ask questions. We want to see how it goes at the beginning and how independent people can really be. This is the idea that it's really an independent thing. So yeah, let's see how that goes. It'll
That's
be
awesome.
interesting.
That's awesome. I'm excited about that. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Does the course include information about labs, supplements, and the prescription protocol? Yes, I know a lot of people want to know about that, labs especially. So,
Yeah.
information about lab supplements and prescriptions.
Yes, so module 2 of the course is all about labs, prescriptions, the supplement protocol. And basically we give an outline of what all of those are. And we have a call. This is one of the most valuable calls of the course, actually, with the medical team. So usually it's Dr. Shalba and Dr. Laura, and you have access to them and to ask any questions about what labs you should specifically do, how the labs are going to be interpreted, contraindications maybe with medications that you're currently taking. This is a really kind of, I would say, technical module, but module 2, and this is why it's nice to have the support from the medical team. So yeah, so I think this is a good way to like a good access point to this information, I think.
So, how does it work? How would people order those labs? Like, if they wanted to get extra labs, what would they do?
Mm. So when people sign up for Push Health, which is the telemedicine platform that we use, they can make an account on Push Health, and then in that way they can access the service for ordering labs, the prescription protocol, and how it works is that the medical team will go over your case and decide, if you're a candidate for, let's say, the prescription protocol. Of course, anyone can access to order labs, and then that lab order will be sent to a lab close to you, whether that's LabCorp or LabQuest, and you can go there to actually have the test done. And then the tests are usually directly sent back to Push Health, and then you should be able to have a chat directly, an asynchronous chat with the medical team to receive the results and just ask any questions.
All right. And so I know you talked about the labs, but do people need to do it? Like, is this something that's mandatory to go through, have the labs and have the prescriptions? Or if somebody's interested just in lifestyle changes and everything else, is there a choice between the two?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's been a few people. Actually, the one of our clients who is the one who Dr. Hyder actually presented at the FLCC presentation. He only did lifestyle interventions, like diet and lifestyle, and he did really well, and he improved. Um, he felt like he made a really big improvement. So it's not mandatory. And I think that sometimes this can be a bit of a stumbling block because maybe it's not covered by the insurance, or, there are many kind of stumbling blocks and barriers to people doing this, doing the labs, or even taking the supplements, because the supplement list is really long and it's really big. And there are many ways that you can get those nutrients through food instead of supplements. And the process of figuring out when to take the supplements, should I take them on an empty stomach, or with other things, or not with other things, or what time of the day, or what contraindications, can be quite overwhelming, and people can get a little bit stuck on this and then feel that this is between them and healing. Like, oh, if I don't resolve this thing or do
Right,
these things
right,
right,
right.
then I'm not going to get better. Yeah. And this is just not true. It's possible to get everything from food. It's possible to make amazing lifestyle changes and still improve. So it's good to not see this as like the main block between you and being better. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Dr. Hare actually made a similar comment at his Q&A yesterday. He had his live Q&A. There was some connection issues, but we finally made it through the episode. And he actually said the same thing. So people had questions about, the blood test about microclotting. Oh, the blood test from IncelDX. Oh, the blood test. And these are very expensive tests. $200, $400, $600. And, the newer the test, the more expensive it is. And after explaining all the process of how the lab works and everything else, Dr. Hayter actually stopped and he said, "I want to make sure that you understand. It's not, you don't have to. You can try all the lifestyle changes first, because that's exactly what he did, because that's how he actually healed his own long COVID. And you don't have to feel that, oh, I need to spend thousands of dollars to get answers to, and have this blood test. Try the lifestyle first and see how much improvement you get just from lifestyle, just from, there was some things he mentioned, intermittent fasting, the cold therapy that he always talks about in all of his Q&As, grounding, which I know that he probably talked about at the FLCC or was part of his presentation. So it was interesting that he wanted to emphasize for his patients and the audience that there are ways for you to get to healing, or get on the pathway to healing that doesn't cost hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars. I think that's pretty awesome. I always like when I hear a doctor say, you can spend this money, but you don't have to. There's other ways. So that
Yeah.
they have your best interest at heart when they say that. Okay, what else is covered in the course? So in Phoenix, we're talking about Phoenix.
Yeah. So last week's live, I went more in detail about every single module. So if anyone wants to see more details about that, they can scroll back. But basically, aside from that, what we talked about, we cover things like nervous system regulation, sleep optimization, digestion, food and diet, of course, and then things like movement, exercise, movement, meditation, and then things like meditation and gratitude, and these more mindfulness practices are also part of the course.
Awesome. And here is a question that I've actually seen in the emails as well, and it has to do with results. Am I guaranteed to get results or to see results? And sometimes, they'll ask how soon.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because I think that what I notice in the discovery calls is that a lot of people are at their wits' end when they arrive to us, right? They're sort of like, I've seen all these doctors, I've seen all these professionals, I've been sick for so long, it's been years.
Right,
I
right.
don't want to spend this money unless I know that I'm going to be better. And they're kind of like at the end of their tether, and they just want to see results, which I completely understand, and this is really valid. And yeah, I think the thing that I always say is that, for a start, when it comes to supplementation, you don't see results in the same way that you see results from pharmaceutical drugs. And this is one common misconception, actually, that I see a lot in my coaching, is that, when you take antibiotics, you feel better within a day or two sometimes. It clears up the infection really fast. But when you start taking zinc, you're not going to notice a difference to your immune system in a day. This is not
Correct.
how
Yes.
supplementation works. It's you start to feel, you build on it takes 2 to 3 months, really. I would say, to give it 3 months on a supplement protocol to really notice if you're going to see a result. So this thing of, just starting and stopping, this doesn't really work. But um, I think I think that for some people, they can get better really quickly if they find the root of what is really triggering their main symptoms. So, say for example, someone has an autoimmune condition and it's been really exacerbated by COVID, and they've never really got to the bottom of it, and then they decide, oh, I'm going to try the autoimmune paleo protocol, and then that is really where the root of their issues are, and then that will address a lot of things really quickly. And the same with nervous system regulation, right? So if people realize, oh, this is at the root of my symptoms, I'm going to go do the stellate ganglion block, people get better. Some people are miraculously better within a day or two, right? It just turns
Right.
things around. So I think if you're able to find, okay, this is the thing that's going to bring me 50% forward, then it can be fast. but it can often be, it can for many people be a constellation of different things. And it's just about making many small changes across the board and across different areas, and then seeing slow, improvements over time. So of course there's no guarantee, but one thing Dr. Hyder says, I'm actually glad he said this. When did he say this? Oh, he said this at the Children's Health Defense interview. Because I always want to say this, and I don't say this because sometimes people don't like to hear it. But whenever we have an illness, it's sort of usually trying to show us and reflect something to us about our life. And no one likes to hear this because you just want to be better and you just want to be over it. But, for example, one really common thing is very A-type personality people who've probably been suffering from adrenal fatigue and, HPA axis dysfunction, and they're just maxing out their life to the the biggest capacity for many years, and then they suddenly crash and feel really fatigued because they have long COVID. And the reality is that they needed to rest for the last 10 years, but they didn't. And now they're just getting forced to rest, and there's no option except resting. And this is just really hard to face, but this is just how it is, like if you ignore your body for a long time, then it will find a way to show you, what you need to know. And the more you ignore, the harsher that reality will be shown to you later. So this is yeah,
That
something.
reminds me, what does Dr. Hader call it? He calls it health savings or something like that. Is an expression that I've heard him use. And what he basically means is that, if you were healthy, or your healthy habits add up over time, is like having money in the bank account. But
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
over time, you start maybe not paying attention, or you eat more fast food. It's like basically going and taking that money out on your health.
Mm.
And then that money will of course run out at some point, and then you're in a point in your life and you say, well, I was fine, I'm I thought I'm okay. What happened? All of a sudden you get long COVID, your immune system is not at top shape,
Mm.
and all of a sudden is like, that whole bank account, that health savings account, however you want to call it, just runs on dry. So
Yeah.
I think this is similar to what you were explaining, that you can't
Yeah. That's a good way
order.
of putting it, actually. Yeah. It's, if you have 100 and then COVID takes 50, you're still okay. But if you have two and then it takes 50, then you're in minus 48, and then you're not good. So it's just,
Exactly.
yeah, a good analogy.
Okay, let's see here. I think these are the questions that were added. Are there here, give me 1 second. Are there specific symptoms that are associated with specific conditions, like fatigue or brain fog?
Yeah. So one of in module 2, when we talk about the labs and the supplements, we do have a chart that shows kind of associations between certain deficiencies and certain things and certain symptoms. So taste, smell, diarrhea is associated with zinc deficiency, fatigue, breathing issues, brain fog, memory is with copper deficiency. Um, Normalizing iron can help with fatigue and breathing. Vitamin A is helpful with viral persistence. Of course, ANA profile is in regards to correcting autoimmunity.
Mhm.
Yeah, it usually suggests that maybe even a prior case of an autoimmune condition. So there are these kind of correlations, and this is interesting, I think, to explore, and especially even for people who've been taking many supplements over the pandemic or even before, because even this can cause an imbalance. So we know that nutrients work in pairs, like zinc and copper, and sodium, potassium, vitamin K2 and vitamin D. So, when we take an excessive amount of one nutrient, we can actually deplete its partner. So it can often be the case that people will have one deficiency because they've taken too much of something else. So it's definitely interesting to do the lab work and to see what's going on. But again, it's not that you're going to correct your zinc and then probably your brain fog will 100% go away. But it's definitely a small piece of it. But it's usually not the panacea. That will turn everything around. But as I said before, for many people, and actually for a recent graduate of the course, she's one of these people who really did a constellation of different things. She was doing the ice baths, she was doing the nervous system work, she was doing the nicotine patches, she was doing the TENS machine. She changed her diet. She really attacked things from all angles, for her everything it really elevated her to feeling 80% better towards the end. So
that's incredible. Nice. Nice. There are two questions about the calls. One is who actually hosts the calls, and what happens if one week somebody cannot attend, or they miss a call, or just, for whatever reason, they cannot make it. What? Go ahead.
Yeah. So we make recordings of the calls every week, so people who miss the call can watch it. And you can also, if you know in advance you're going to miss the call, you can send the questions in advance, and then we'll just cover the questions without you, and then you can watch the recording. And so usually I host all of the calls, except in module 2, I'm joined by Dr. Shalb usually and Dr. Laura, because as I was saying, this module about the labs and supplementations, they can answer more specific questions about that and the prescription protocol. So they always join for that call.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So this is module 2. You said when the labs are discussed. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. When are the weekly calls? Like, when do they take place? Is there a specific time or day of the week? Is it consistent?
Yeah. So far we've always done it at 1 p.m. EST time on Friday. And so far, everyone has managed to make that time. But of course, if we have a new cohort and no one is available, or let's say a huge percentage of people are not available at that time, then of course we're open to changing the time. And sometimes it's, just to find something that works for everyone is a bit difficult at the beginning, but we can usually do it, or consider splitting the group into two different calls. That's also an option.
So usually, how big is the group? What is let's say, the maximum number of participants in one cohort?
So we don't really have a maximum in one cohort, but in one call, I usually like to keep it to 8 people, I would say maximum on the call, just because then everyone needs a chance, because the call's 1 hour. So, we want everyone to have a chance to talk. Even with 6 people, that means 10 minutes per person. And that's 10 minutes of talking and getting feedback and insights from the group, which isn't that long. So, it's a little bit less than that. And so we usually try to keep, 6 to 8 on the calls, which usually works out fine, because there's always weeks where people can't join, and, it goes up and down. But if there's any more than that, then we open another call.
Okay, then you schedule a second session, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
What other type of support is offered by the coach aside from the calls?
Yeah, so at the end of every call, I give a summary of what we spoke about. And also, usually we talk about different resources, links, articles, documentaries, anything that is discussed in the call. Or even, if a participant tried something that really worked for them, then, that goes into the summary call. And then usually I have an individual thread with everyone, and we exchange, let's say 1 to 2. I think the maximum is 2 emails per week with each individual, just to follow up on anything that's going on with them or that was discussed in the call.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. And a question about fasting. Should everyone start fasting? I'm guessing fasting is addressed in the course.
Mhm.
So there was some question related to, is that, covered? Do they have to? What's your approach?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think someone asked a question about fasting also and the supplements and medications in the comments I saw on last week's, and I didn't get round to that question, but yeah, we can fast and do the supplement protocol and the prescription protocol. It's just about figuring out how to take the supplements that need to be taken with food, during your fasting window. And I have, I think I did another live some time ago, which we can find specifically about fasting, because there are some instances of contraindication. So, sometimes women who in their childbearing years, it can be contraindicated to fast, and people with adrenal fatigue and cortisol dysregulation. There's just in those two circumstances in particular, it's something that sometimes can actually make people worse rather than better. So, but for most people, well, actually, for everyone, doing a reasonably long overnight fast is always a good way to start, and that's safe and great for everyone to try. So, like at least a 12 to 13 hour fasting overnight window.
Do you recommend, so when it comes to fasting, I imagine there are different age groups. Is there a recommendation of the number of hours to fast, for women versus men, or for,
Mm,
under 40 years old, or over, 40 to 50? Because I remember, when reading about fasting, there are different, number of hours, like you say, like 18 and 6 or 12 and 12 or 10. There's different, ways that can be done. Do
mhm.
you recommend it differently for different participants?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest differentiation is more on gender than age,
Gender, okay. So
because
women versus men. Okay, okay.
yeah, because women in their childbearing years are really susceptible to like losing the hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is just skipping periods and missing your menstrual cycle because of fat loss, or because of this the body's perceiving that you're in starvation mode, so then it down regulates the need to reproduce because it thinks that you're in an environment of scarcity, and then that can cause disruptions to hormones.
That's
And
interesting. That's interesting. I never
yeah,
thought. Yeah, that makes sense,
because
actually.
the
Yeah.
body doesn't know that we're not in a famine, so it's just like, what, there's no food around, we can't have a baby now. So
That makes a lot
yeah.
of sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
and all the studies on mice actually are really interesting, because they don't show good benefits for the female mice in fasting. Like it dysregulates their hormones and even their insulin sensitivity. They have insomnia. They have really different symptoms to the men. So, and of course, we can't compare mice and humans exactly. And for women, there are a lot of women who fast and they're fine. But I think a lot of women push through and feel like, oh, this must be good for me because I read it was, and then it causes these other disruptions. And then of course, if you have a chronic condition, you don't want to then add on top of that, layer on top of that, a hormone imbalance. So these are the a good instance in which it can be contraindicated.
Is it true? This is something that I've read years ago. And it had to do with the theory of snacking and how
Mhm.
it's, especially when you have kids and I started reading all these articles on, how to stay healthy and how to be healthy and how to feed your children healthy stuff. And it was related to fasting. It was saying that it's not a good idea to, not related to children, it was still about adults. It's not a good idea to fast, at all,
Mhm.
because, when you do, just like you said, your body thinks, it's, scarcity time, and then after you start eating normally, then your appetite is like double. Is that even true? Like, is there even, because I remember reading and thinking, oh, I'd better, make sure I get my dinner in, because what if tomorrow I overeat? Which, doesn't make sense to me now, but I remember it wasn't just one article, it was actually multiple. And then in addition to that, they were saying, which I did find out not to be true, that it's recommended to have those snacks between breakfast and lunch, and then the second snack between lunch and dinner, which now thinking, to me, it sounds ridiculous. Like, why,
Mm.
why would that be the case? Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, I don't know if you know what I mean. Years
Yeah.
ago, all those articles discouraged
Yeah.
fasting at all, like not even
Mm.
not even a day, because God forbid the next day you're going to over. Is there any truth to
I
that at all?
remember that. I think I
Yeah.
remember that in the 90s. That was a thing.
Yes, yes, it was years
Interestingly,
ago. Yeah.
there's been a reemergence of it's called the pro metabolic community, and they're really into this idea of stress regulation through constant snacking. And so there's a whole movement of people who are into snacking a lot, because and it relates to this adrenal fatigue, because so when you are starving, as in you've used all the glucose in your body and now you need to ask the liver to release some glucose into the so we can get energy and ketones. That is a kind of stress response on the body, because the body's used up all its preferred fuel and now it wants to access more fuel by going to the liver and saying, hey, I need some energy, like, can you do something? And this is in a sense, this is kind of a kind of stressor on the body in some ways. So then people who have a lot of stress in their body, in their life, in terms of anything, emotional stress, work stress, even like physical misalignment, like any kind of stressor on the body. And that's causing issues for them in different ways, whether it's adrenal fatigue or structural issues. Then you don't want to add more stress by starving yourself, essentially. So, this is the other moment and the other example in which it's contraindicated. But then this new movement of the pro metabolic community, which is quite popular, and it's pioneered by a guy called Ray Peat. And there's so many nutritionists now I see online these days talking about this idea. Um, and there is some truth to it, but because of what I explained about, trying to regulate stress better by not forcing your body to be starving. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people overdo it and they end up constantly snacking between meals and thinking that, one thing that's really popular in the pro metabolic community is just drinking liters and liters of orange juice every day. And a lot of people are doing this and then putting on a lot of weight because that it's just too many calories and too much
It's
food.
just too much,
And
right?
yeah,
I
it's
agree.
too much. And for me, I mean, I think that I think that there is just because something is true slightly doesn't mean that we need to go to this extreme where we're literally eating every
Right.
couple of hours.
There
And
has to be a balance somewhere,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And I feel that there's this susceptibility to extremes, especially in the diet sphere, with carnivore and vegan, and there's just so many crazy extremes.
Too
And
much.
yes, yeah, like okay, maybe for some people, not fasting is a good idea, but I don't think for anyone snacking obsessively and drinking liters of orange juice is going to be good, because we're basically not designed to have that much abundance of food and also to be
Exactly. Exactly.
constantly eating. Like we're designed to have breaks from eating and to even be hungry, to actually feel hungry and then have bigger meals. So it doesn't, yeah, I think it doesn't make sense. And if I think in Bethany's weight loss program, they're doing the continuous blood sugar monitors, and I
They are.
think with those you can really see, how different meals affect your blood sugar. And of course, if you can see really huge spikes every time you have a snack, I guess, depending on what it is, then that's not going to be effective. That's not going to be having a positive effect on the body. But in terms of being hungry, I usually hear people saying the opposite. I mean, I think Dr. Haider said this with when he went on his 5-day carnivore diet, he just didn't feel like he craved sweets anymore.
The
Because,
cravings. I remember him talking
yeah,
about that. It was the only thing that actually took away his cravings. I remember that. for at least for me, and again, it doesn't mean that it applies to everyone, but what I had discovered with my kids is that it was not a good idea to introduce the snacking, because what ended up happening was, especially my youngest, who's now 6, a couple years ago, I noticed she would just not eat her lunch.
Yeah.
For me, lunch was like the most important meal. Okay, well, there's soup or something that's cooked, that's home cooked, and she ended up just completely. I noticed it on the weekends. She just did not eat lunch, and she was starving by 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. So eventually, it took me a while to realize it, but now we've completely given up snacking in between meals. So there's breakfast is breakfast. You can have an apple if you want to, and then lunch is lunch. Like, you have to wait until lunch and be hungry, because otherwise it just completely changes and messes up the whole day, then the whole pattern
Mm.
of eating.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway,
that makes sense.
we went a little bit off topic here. There is one more question also related to fasting, and it has to do with taking the supplements and the prescription protocols while fasting. Is that okay to do? Is that safe to do?
Yeah, so I think the main variable is just figuring out which supplements and prescriptions can't be taken on an empty stomach, and which you should, if your fasting window is 8 or 9 hours, just figuring out which ones need to be taken, and at which time. And also some supplements shouldn't be taken with certain foods because they block the absorption of their nutrients. So it's knowing which foods block the absorption of those nutrients and avoiding those foods in that time. So maybe there's just a bit less, there's less of a that's a more condensed, because the window is smaller. So you have to be more precise about it, but it's completely possible to do that.
And what about and I know you've mentioned this briefly, what about the keto diet and the carnivore diet? Is that something that you recommend for people in
Yeah.
the course?
Yeah, so when it comes to diets, often people ask this, in the group, and I think that, there's the autoimmune paleo protocol, there's keto, there's carnivore. I mean, we pretty much never recommend going vegan, but then there are different adaptations of the ancestral health model, like primal, paleo, um, paleo adapted. Like, all of these have different applications. And I would say, if someone has an autoimmune condition, they could try the autoimmune paleo protocol. And if someone has, let's say, quite a few people have diabetes or blood sugar dysregulation, so then doing a more keto, low carb can be a good option. So it's figuring out what symptoms your long COVID has exacerbated and made worse, and then thinking of what diet will actually help to support whatever those are. And usually your prior conditions give you some indication of that.
All right. And I think there was one more question. What are the discovery calls? Like, what do they entail? What do they mean? What's the purpose of the calls?
Mhm. Yeah, so the discovery call is just a 15-minute call where you can ask me, anything really about the course, whether it will be not just the group coaching course, also one-on-one coaching. So whether or not it will be a good fit. Usually people tell me a lot about their health history and what's been going on, and maybe I give an idea of what I think we would work on if we did work together. And yeah, that's
More
the idea.
informative, right? It's not necessarily giving advice. It's more trying to find out if the course it's appropriate, right? Is that am I
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. Seeing if it would make sense, and also seeing if our approach is something that would fit with people, because of course everyone has to be open to, if you just want to do the supplement protocol or the prescription protocol, then you should just sign up on Push Health, and and speak to someone from the team about that. And there's no point in doing diet and lifestyle and this kind of coaching if that you're not willing to make any changes in your diet or your lifestyle, right? So it depends. I think people also get a gauge on what they're willing to kind of do, and also what's possible to do, because there's so many different things that we can work on, and that maybe people haven't even thought of. So it's giving this idea of what's possible, and yeah, and giving people a chance also just to speak about their actual history with long COVID.
Yeah, and this actually ties to the next question. You do see people and members that have long COVID or have had long COVID, right, and are looking for ways to improve their symptoms. I guess one way I would look at it is, if you're interested in exclusively medical advice / medical assistance, then my go-to doc would be the way to go, correct? If
Mm-hmm.
you're looking more of a natural approach, lifestyle change approach, diet change approach, then Phoenix would be the better option. I guess this is how I'm kind of always seen it in my head.
Yeah.
Not to mean that they mutually exclusive by any means, but you have to probably be a little bit open to implementing some change, right, once you attend the course, right?
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And of course, as we talked about in module 2, you have access to the medical team, you have access to the prescription protocol, the supplement protocol, like all of that is available to you also during the one-on-one coaching and group coaching.
Included,
But
right.
it's more, as you said, focused on other approaches. And I think the other thing about it that's useful is that healing from a chronic condition takes a long time usually. I mean, some people, it can be, you can start to feel better quickly, but usually people approach us once they've already had this condition for quite a long time and have tried many different things. So it's nice to have this continuity of working with a coach over time and with a group over time, because you can try one thing and it's a journey, really. You're going on a journey, and that takes time. That's not just one conversation.
Quick fix.
And yeah, exactly. So
I
so it
like that word, actually. I really
yeah,
like it. A journey, like it just entails, I just like that word.
yeah.
Journey to health. Well, that's it. That's all the questions for today, Michelle. I really thank you
Great.
so much
Thank
for
you.
having me and for clarifying, I guess even for myself, a lot of things about Phoenix. I think
It
it's
was great.
exciting. So again, the next group starts May 8th, which is this coming Monday, correct?
Hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
And people, when do registrations usually close? Is it the day of, like the actual Monday?
Yeah, it's on the Monday. Yeah.
On the Monday. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks for
Thanks for
coming on. It
having
was great to
me.
have you. Thank you, everyone.